And welcome once again to the Ron Ponder Show here on C-Town Radio. I am, of course, Ron Ponder, and we're thanking Jeff Woodson for developing C-Town Radio. Appreciate you listening. Today we have a very interesting guest, and he's a person that does a lot in the background, and nobody really knows what he does or how he does it, or whether or not it's a good, possibly a great vocation for somebody if they've got the goods to do it. So let me introduce you to Mr. Deametrious St John. What's up, Deametrious?
How you doing, Ron? How are you?
Good. Demetrious's company is named Strategic Resources Consulting. And generally, you're a political consultant. Is that safe to classify you as such?
Yes, strategist, consulting, outreach. Those are the things we specialize in.
Okay, how do you do that? What do you do? Do you meet with a candidate and
yeah, it's not all candidates though, Ron. We do corporate outreach. Say if you have a company and you have a product and you want to do outreach in the political realm. We do that kind of outreach. We also we do issue campaigns. For example, in Cleveland, every 4 to 6 years they do a sin tax renewal or a health and human service renewal, and those are levies that every so often they have to come up for renewals of their bonds to be able to get public money to help with the sin taxes, the renovations of the public arenas, what is Rocket Field House, First Energy Field, and Progressive Field up in Cuyahoga County, which a lot of people don't know. The taxpayers, the voters, own those facilities.
Right, and you're right too that most people don't know that.
Yeah.
So your company is obviously more involved than candidates, but that's a part of it. But you have corporate interests, corporate clients as well, right?
Right. Well, actually, at this point, we have more corporate clients and issue clients than we do candidates. We do take on congressional races. I mean, as you know, Marcia Fudge was a longtime client of ours, and a lot of people calls her our benefactor. Now she's the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, but we took care of her political interests for the 10 years she was in Congress. And now we have her predecessor, not a predecessor, but the person who's followed her in the Congress, Chantel Brown, who now represents the 11th Congressional District. And of course, you know, I've had Tom West since the beginning of his political career. Last cycle, I had Judge Terry Jamison, who ran for Supreme Court. She's a appeals court judge on the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in Columbus. I was Kevin Boyce's political director while he was the state treasurer. So yeah, and of course for the Biden-Harris campaign, I was the senior advisor for their campaign in 2020 and hoping to return in 2024.
Darn. We're talking with Mr. Deametrious St John. He owns Strategic Resources Consulting. They're political consultants, but they're not just political. They're corporate and otherwise too. How did you get into that? I'm imagining, Demetrius, with my limited understanding and vision of what you do, that there probably aren't a lot of African Americans doing that. Am I accurate on that?
Yeah, we're probably the only full service consulting firm in the state. There's a couple others in Columbus, but they're lobbyists, and we're not lobbyists. We do political outreach, and it's a thin line, but we don't cross that line. We don't lobby. We do outreach. We talk to people, whether it's a candidate or it's an issue. We get those issues out in the community. for an example, Ohio Means Jobs. We had a contract with Ohio Means Jobs in Cuyahoga County for 6 years. So, trying to force particularly African Americans to their service, we did that for 6 years, which means if there was a parade or a rally or, whatever was going on in communities, we would go in and get their lit distributed and talk about the services that Ohio Means Jobs has laid out there for us.
Okay. Once again, we're talking with Deametrious St John from Strategic Resources Consulting. You're out of Cleveland. No, you're out of this region, right, Deametrious?
Right. I was born in Cleveland. I live in Canton now.
Yeah, and didn't you used to try to play basketball?
Yeah, I tried to play rock. That was a long time ago. I mean, I played for a long time, and I think that's what kind of drove me to this kind of work. It's that competitive spirit that I've lost. I don't play basketball anymore. I'm too old for that. So, but this has a very competitive feel to it, and especially in the heat of a campaign, it really feels like a battle that you just without all the physical stuff.
Maybe if it was more physical stuff, it wouldn't be happening as much. But so how did you get into this? I mean, did you go to college and get a degree in political consulting?
Yeah, I have a political science degree from Western Michigan University, and that was just because of my interest in politics and history. I mean, nothing I learned in school applies to what I do. There are some things like, they tell you the basics of how elections are run, how the electoral college works, and those type of things. You learn that at school, but how to actually get people to vote, they don't teach you that. They can't teach you that because every community is different. Every issue is different. So we do a lot of messaging with candidates, and to go way back to how I first started it, because I was in high school, a guy named Earl Turner, who now is the clerk of courts in Cleveland, he used to be my AAU basketball coach, and he was also a councilman at the time. So he would have us, we would practice, and then we would go campaign for him. Pass out his handbills and hammer in his yard signs. Back then, putting yard signs in was hard. So, and he paid us by taking us to McDonald's. So I was always interested. I kind of idolized Arnold Pinckney, if you know that name. I mean, he's a big-time political guy. I mean, any money that flowed into the African-American community for a lot of years, in political campaigns, presidential campaigns, it flowed through Arnold Pinckney. Arnold Pinckney ran Jesse Jackson's campaign when he ran for president. He was his campaign manager. He was Carl Stokes' campaign manager, who was the first African-American mayor of a major city in this country. And he put Louis Stokes, the first African-American in Congress. He was his campaign manager. So I kind of idolized him. I got to know him when he was on the school board, and my dad was a mechanic, and he did work on his cars. So I got to know him, and I watched him, and so I kind of followed that. I went into political science, and I came back and I actually played basketball first. I went overseas, came back, spent a little time on the coaching staff at Cleveland State, and when Mike White ran for mayor, I figured I would dabble a little more, and I worked with him about getting the college campus kids out to register to vote and vote between Cleveland State and Trice's campus in downtown Cleveland, and that was very successful, and I really started to get a taste now. And then I ended up getting married and moving to Canton, so I was completely out of my comfort zone, which was the Cleveland area, that great state of Cuyahoga County, as they used to call it.
Yeah.
So I had to build my own infrastructure, so to speak. And I was able to do that. And of course, my first client was Thomas West. He ran for council, and I ran 2 council races simultaneously. Tom West, St. Kelly, Zachary, and I won both. And that's what got me noticed in the Democratic infrastructure in Stark County.
Yeah, they're saying, "Hey, who is this dude?"
Right. That's exactly what they were saying.
We talked with Mr. Deametrious St John from Strategic Resources Consulting, and I'm trying to give you listeners an opportunity to see an alternative potential career by showing some individuals like Demetrius who are successful in what they're doing. And the bottom line is you can be too, not just in what Demetrius is doing, but whatever you might want to do. Demetrius, what advice has anybody ever come to you and said, Mr. St. John, I'd like to know, I'd like to do what you're doing. Will you take me under your wing? Or what advice would you give somebody like that?
Well, it's, we use it, my partner and I, we use the term, we eat what we kill, so you have to go out and get the business. It don't come to you. You have to go find it. We've been around for 20 something now, almost 30 years now. So actually since 2012, we formed Strategic Resources, but
yeah, because you guys were doing it individually at one time.
Yeah,
right?
We were doing it individually. I worked for the Ohio Democratic Party. I was the African American outreach director, and then the Obama campaign took me from ODP and made me his statewide African American outreach director in 2008. And in 2012, we decided we was going to incorporate, and because incorporating ourselves as a LLC, it allowed us to make money that the other people make. When we were contracting out individually, I always said they were nickel and diming us,
Yeah.
And you learn more, once you get involved. And a lot of the kids that come to me and talk to me, and a lot of them have interned with us and they work with us. We've contracted them for certain particular contracts. A lot of them don't have the stomach for it, and it's not, or the patience, I would say. I won't say stomach, it's the patience. Those kids, when they get out of college, they looking to make some money. and when you got to scrap, to go get the money, they don't really have that yet, but they'll get it when they get older.
Yeah.
I was kind of the same way. I had an experience when I was interning for Lewis Stokes. I was a sophomore and a junior in college, and I spent the summers interning for him. And I told myself, hey, look, I want to have my own money before I do this.
Yeah.
Because it's not an easy way when you go that route. You intern and then you hope to get a job. And for an example, when Chantel was going to Congress, we told her, hey, you don't have any permanent staff in Washington because everybody you hire, they looking for their next job. Staff, and then, a lot of people end up doing what I'm doing, but some people just like staying in the bureaucracy. I don't have the stomach for that.
Well, once upon a time I did a documentary on Congressman Ralph Regula, and he would always tell me, he knew my kids, he would always tell me that the future jobs are in administration, in the court, in the legislative offices or parties or the White House. And he said, tell your daughter to look in that direction. And I wondered about that because at that time it was like at that time affirmative action was not a bad word to a lot of people.
Right.
And there was a lot of African Americans who were getting those opportunities.
Well, Ron, a lot of people don't realize right now African Americans have more political power in Washington than we've ever had. Pretty much almost a third of Congress is African American now. This administration, the White House, they have more African Americans in that administration than Barack Obama had, the first black president.
Then tell me this, Demetrius, why is it that African Americans, or many of them that I talk to, it's not like I'm going out and speaking to crowds of people, but folks that I run into are asking me, what has the Democratic Party and or Joe Biden done for me? They don't see, he talked yesterday, I think, about the
State of the Union.
Yeah, during his State of the Union, he talked about some specific things. He talked about the highway bill. And he talked about the infrastructure and several others, but most people or a lot of people don't know that.
They don't pay attention to it. That's they don't pay attention to it. That's the first infrastructure bill passed since what 1970 something,
and bipartisan.
and it's bipartisan. Well, he forced it. A lot of those, I mean, he said it at the State of the Union. A lot of those Senate Republican senators and Congress people didn't vote for it. More Congress people didn't.
Right.
They didn't vote for it, but they showed, like when they were in Cincinnati, about the bridge that goes from Cincinnati to Kentucky to not Lexington, but what is that right on the other side of Cincinnati in Kentucky? Yeah, whatever it is. That bridge, they're redoing it. They've been trying to redo that bridge for the last 3 or 4 decades.
Right.
Now he got it done, but hey, you saw Mike DeWine there.
Yeah. well, I think President
Rob Portman was there. Rob Portman voted against it.
Yeah. Well, I think it was yesterday that President Biden was speaking someplace, and he said that he thanked the Republicans who didn't vote for it. And
they show up at the ribbon cut.
Yeah, he reminded them of that. But he said he's president of all the people, not just those that voted for him.
Right.
So he'll see you at the ribbon cutting.
Yeah, that's the policy stuff that I really don't have the stomach for, because if I was there, hey, we take no prisoners in campaigns. They have to work with everybody, and they made a conscious effort to make sure they put some of those, a lot of those infrastructure dollars in red districts. And I understand the strategic part of that, but hey, that don't help me when I'm out here trying to win Ohio for them.
No, not.
And maybe it will. I mean, hey, we won Hamilton County anyway, though. So
well, that was a tough nut to crack, because that's been a consistently conservative area. Did you? How do you see the? Let me remind our listeners, that we're talking with you, Deametrious St John. He owns Strategic Resources Consulting, and we're talking about him being a political consultant and activist, I guess pro-activist. How do you see?
No, I'm not an activist. There's a big difference from what I do and activist.
True. How do you see where do you see the Democratic Party, and where do you see the Republican Party in 4 years?
In 4 years?
Yeah.
Well, the Republican Party, and I'm not just here to give you a party line, because I've had Republican candidates, clients before. So the Republican Party is off the rails. And it's kind of funny. They'll look at, we off the rails. We're this woke environment, far left, when it's not. The president that's in the White House, he's far from far left. He's more moderate.
Yeah.
Than far left, Now, when you want to say far left, you're talking about people like Nina Turner, Bernie Sanders, who Bernie Sanders admits he's a democratic socialist.
Right.
Well, this isn't a socialist community. This is a capitalist system that we live in, and we know the history of how capitalism started. So hey, and as a black man in this country running a small business in this country, I'm aware of our past, but hey. Barack Obama once said, you got to play the cards that's dealt. And these are the cards that are being dealt. We live in a capitalist society. So, hey, we're worth just as much as them. And our consultants, our associates and senior associates want to make money like they make.
Right.
So it's an economic thing for us. The reason we do things the way we do them. And the politics itself, the Republican Party is off the rail, and the Democratic Party still has a problem messaging. Talking about, you mentioned that people don't know what this administration's done, and they've done a lot of things to help them, to help people. And we got the lowest unemployment in 30 years. We've got, we created 500,000, more than 500,000 jobs in the month of January. And those things, because, most people, the average people, don't sit around and watch news all day. They might catch the 6 o'clock or the 11 o'clock news, but 30 minutes of news is not all the stuff that's going on. We live in a 24-hour news cycle now.
Absolutely. Once again, we're talking with Deametrious St John. He's the owner of Strategic Resources Consulting. You're listening to the Ron Ponder Show here on C-Town Radio, and we appreciate you doing that. Jeff, what's our timing look like?
we are in 19
Oh,
minutes.
all I got to do is look up and look at it. Thanks. Would you want to say anything else to our listeners, Demetrious, in terms of your occupation?
Yeah, and I guess that's why you call me an activist, because we do a lot of messaging in what we do, and really is to get our candidates elected. But we are, I guess, in a way, I am a Democratic activist because, we just went through 4 years of the worst time of my lifetime, watching the way government operated in this country. Now, I would be saying the same thing if Donald Trump was a Democrat.
Yeah, I agree.
And was acting the way if he was,
Right.
I would have been like a lot of those Republicans and became an independent,
Right.
because they couldn't stand, what they were seeing. Now, you look at that, and most people, when you say the right things, there's a lot of people that believe that stuff that Donald Trump believes.
True.
And there's a lot of people that believe what, Clyburn believes, or Marcia Fudge, or anybody
True.
else, but one thing I learned watching the Obama administration and those guys, they don't want to work with us. There's an element of that right-wing party. They don't want to work with us. So, hey, you have to, I kind of, always says if I ever run into the former president, there's a whole lot of things I would want to say to him, because we had an opportunity, even though the Affordable Care Act went a long way. It put 30 million people on insurance, health insurance that didn't have it, but we could have went all the way. We could have went all the way, and the only thing I feel like you have to do is open up Medicaid. Open up for everybody, based on your income. And I think if you make it competitive for the private sector, that brings prices down. Medicaid is probably the most efficient system in the world. But because we appease to the private sector because of the capitalism, I don't think there's anything wrong with the government competing as well and setting the standards for that industry.
Right.
Because it's an industry that's out of control.
Right. Very much so. Well, I thought you said you didn't deal too much into policy.
I don't. I just have my personal opinions, and I guess I do my work I take clients based on my personal beliefs.
Yeah, I understand. In what I do, I don't take a client on board unless he, she, or I are congruent on social economic status.
A good example, Ron, is you helped me get that API contract, the American Petroleum Institute, for those people who don't know. And the American Petroleum Institute is the trade organization for the oil and gas company.
Right. I helped you do that?
Yeah, you helped me. You made a call and said, they called you and asked for a black firm.
Yeah, I remember.
And you said, hey, you need to talk to this guy. And they called me. And we ended up interviewing with him, and they hired us. We worked for them for 8 years.
Wow. Where's my cut?
Now, my business partner had a contract over in Pittsburgh, a young sister running for Congress over there. He worked for 3 weeks. Somebody looked at our website and saw that API was one of our clients. She didn't want him to work for us because she don't believe in oil and gas. Now, I happen to believe what Joe Biden said at the State of the Union. Hey, we're going to need, for the next decade or so, we're going to need some oil. We need oil and gas, we can't flip this thing overnight. So, hey, they need to increase production. That was his statement in the State of the Union. I believe that.
Yeah.
Now, there's some jeers in the Democratic Party, and, but hey, we ain't gonna throw those windmills out in the Lake Erie and all of a sudden and get all of these solar panels up. And it's all of a sudden we're going to be a clean energy country overnight. It's not going to work that way.
Yeah.
So I worked for them, and my thing with it, which Ron, it was so many jobs coming available in the natural gas industry, and that was our thing, to get as many minorities. Those were high-paying jobs. You didn't have to have a high school. You didn't even have to have a high school diploma for those jobs.
Well, for some of them.
For some of them, you did. Like one of my goddaughters, I got a job. She's an engineer for Shell now. She graduated from OU as an engineer, and I was able to funnel her into that pipeline. And she's been working for them now for about 4 years. So, That was all good, but our thing was about the employment for minorities. Those jobs were out there, good paying jobs, and that's what they hired us for, to
Yeah.
get, because they had a retiring and dying workforce.
An aging white workforce.
Yeah, aging white workforce. So we take contracts for different reasons, but that contract ended up losing my partner a contract in Pittsburgh
Well,
because they
hopefully,
didn't like the fact that we had represented them.
hopefully the net result was positive.
Yeah, I mean, it
So,
did. Hey, look, but you know how we are. My brothers, I ain't like her no way. But she ended up winning, though. She's in Congress now, so
well, good.
yeah. You notice I haven't said her name. I'm not
Yeah,
going to throw her name out there.
yeah. Well, I
So
won't. I won't call her
yeah.
Janelle either. We are talking with Deametrious St John. He's the president of Strategic Resources Consulting. You have his clients right now, both Tom West in Canton and Marco Somerville in Akron.
In Akron, yes.
And do you see any similarities in the two campaigns? The approaches, I
No,
should say.
two different communities, two different sets of ideals and issues. No, there's no similarities in these campaigns. People are different. The issues are different. No, it's no. I can't point out one thing besides the fact that both of them are black.
Yeah, black males.
Yeah, black males. I can't, and they have an opportunity to be the first black mayors of those respective cities. So that's the only thing they have in common, but the issues are different. The one thing that they both are dealing with is criminal justice issues, criminal justice and policing issues. They both are going to be dealing with things like that. Of course, the thing in Akron was national news,
Right.
and to some degree, the thing that happened at the end of 2021, was it 2021? Yeah, it was 2021, over on New Year's Eve here in Canton.
Right.
That got less attention nationally, but they're similar issues. Black men shot by police officers. So those are the only similarities that they're going to do. But even the issues and the way you deal with the constituents in these two cities, it's going to be different. It's going to be different.
Mm-hmm. Well, I certainly wish you luck. And is Tom and Marco going to debate? Not each other, of course.
See, when you said that, I feel like I'm giving up trade secrets on the air, and I don't want to do that.
Okay, we don't answer that question.
We like to see a healthy debate in Canton, and Marco would do it. I don't, and this is me talking. I don't think Marco needs a debate up there. He probably will. I don't know if any of those guys. Nobody to this point, no one has said they wanted to debate.
Mm-hmm.
It may be coming as we get into,
well,
March
both
and
elections
April.
are in May,
both of them
right?
are in May, right? Both in May.
And because of the political leadership, the political structures in both counties, in both cities, rather, whoever wins the Democratic primary essentially wins the race.
There. Yeah. Both cities are very democratic. The demographics leans both of my candidates' way. Akron is a very highly African American populated, and I believe Marco would get most of those votes. And the difference is in Canton, Tom West, in the Democratic primary, Canton is probably 54% African American. The question is, will they vote?
Right.
And that's the difference of the two communities. Those people in Akron vote.
Right. And I don't like the answer that historically Canton's African-American voters have proven. I've always said drivers and voters are two of the worst groups of people in terms of responsibility that I know of.
Right, yeah. I remember in 2020, we were looking at the lines outside polling places doing early vote leading up. And every place I went around Ohio and looked at, the voting lines, and I was sitting outside Stark County Democratic, Stark County Board of Elections, and I mean, 75, 80% of the people in the line was white.
Mm.
I was like, everybody was saying, hey, look, we got lines, yeah, but them ain't our voters.
Mm.
You know, so that's the thing. And Ken, most people, hey, we do this, Ron. We go around and we sit around at barbershops and we talk to people. And
Well,
we have healthy debates and we change some minds and some we don't. And
yeah. But,
so
one of the things that troubles me is that I call it my fitting theory. A lot of brothers would come up to me and say, hey, man, I'm fitting to do this, or I'm fitting to do that. And, I'm saying that sarcastically because if they are, well, most of them who come to me and say that don't do diddly. And it really teased me off because I've seen a lot of African Americans presented with opportunities and they either walk away from it or don't recognize the worth of it. Now, I'm not saying everybody does that, but too high of a percentage of African Americans and females do that.
Right. Well, we don't have a problem with African American females vote. They vote. It's the African American males that we have to get a grip on.
Yeah.
And
well,
hey, and I've been telling you this for years, Ron. If African Americans don't vote in Ohio, Democrats don't win.
Yeah, you've been saying that.
And it shows to be true. Turnout was down in 2020. We ended up losing by 7 points. But when Cleveland, only 21% of the people in the city of Cleveland voted, that's not a winning formula for Democrats.
No, not at all. Not at all. But the Republican Party motivates their base by hyping them up, getting them angry,
right. Well,
blaming somebody else for something else.
And that's what I tell people. Donald Trump was saying things that they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
It's stuff that they believe themselves.
Absolutely.
And
not all of them. Not all of them. But the ones that don't believe that didn't speak up enough, didn't say enough about them.
Yeah. So it's 2024 will be interesting, and I'll say this now, that'll probably be my last presidential campaign, but I just can't see this administration not get a second term to finish the job that they started. It was unfinished business from the Obama administration, and we had 4 years of anarchy, and wasn't normal at all.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, are you writing a memoir?
Yeah, I am. I'm I think I have a ghostwriter now, and I'll wait until I'm done with this stuff and tell everybody deep dark secrets. I do know where some bodies are buried, so I'll wait until I'm done because it may affect my income if I start to tell these stories now. So
yeah, I understand. Well, we'll keep our eye open for that. Whatever it's going to be, a book or whatever, your memoirs. But we thank you and appreciate you being a guest today on the Ron Ponder Show, Mr. Deametrious St John.
My pleasure, Ron. Thank you.
Thank you. From Strategic Resources Consulting, we appreciate him being a guest on our program, and we invite you to stick around and check out the rest of C-Town Radio.